everybody. Welcome to the Chief Fun Officer Show. I'm Rebecca Binnendyke, and I am so thrilled to have Vivian Glyck on the show today. Vivian is the founder of Just Like My Child Foundation, which she founded 14 years ago in 2006, following the birth of her son, Zach. Through the experience she had of, when you become a mother, finding that love for your child, it actually woke her up to realize the value not of just her own child, but of all human life. She started learning about the horrific numbers of children dying from malaria and the kids that were orphaned from the AIDS epidemic in Africa. And Vivian just knew in her heart she needed to make a bigger difference. She's a recognized thought leader in global issues, in health, education, economic leadership. And she's specializing in helping the vulnerable adolescent girls and women in East Africa. She's founded Just Like My Child, and this foundation is increasing acceptance of human rights in developing communities and shifting harmful cultural practices that impede girls from continuing their education, which is something that's very close to my heart because we're talking about female genital mutilation here, and we're talking about child marriages and how, over 200 million women around the world have been mutilated. And if we could stop this practice, how it would change the world. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the foundation, but Vivian, I wanted to start before you had your son. So before 14 years ago, what were you doing? And is what you're doing right now what you thought you'd be doing?
That's a really great question. So before Just Like My Child, I was a strategic marketing consultant, which I kind of still am for the organization. And I was an author. My background was in healthcare marketing, and I had quite a bit of medical PR background. So I had a lot of interest in international health and development, I think, as a result of that. I worked I was Deepak Chopra's director of marketing. I had worked, and then I went on to develop relationships with several other really well-known authors to help them with their marketing and speaking platform, et cetera. And I had my own marketing consulting business. And no, I did not think that this was what I was going to be doing. And in fact, when I started Just Like My Child, I had a relatively very young son. And so I had just written a book about called The Tao of Poop, keeping your sanity and your soul while raising a baby. And I was developing some products for moms to really help them, guide to nutrition, infant sleep, et cetera. And I was working with experts, and it wasn't in my vision at the time.
Okay, so I guess my question, I know that it all came out of having Zach, but why Uganda? What brought you to Africa? Because there's lots of places in the world. And what was it about these places that kind of tugged on your heart? And I mean, you know what, Vivian, there's a lot of people in the world who have, I want to say, 6 skills like you do in marketing, but they don't choose to do something like this, create a foundation that's really giving back and improving third world countries. So what was it that made you go, I need to make a bigger difference?
Yeah, so after Zach was born, I had back-to-back miscarriages. So in 2005, I had a miscarriage on July 4th. In 2006, actually, let me back that up. In 2004, July 4th, I had a miscarriage. In 2005, July 4th, I had a miscarriage. And at the time, it was very much this dark night of the soul. I really didn't know what I was supposed to do. I was not particularly heartbroken about not having these pregnancies result in a full-term birth, because I knew that they were, I mean, the testing was genetically, there was an issue. So there was nothing I could have done one way or the other. But I just kept coming around to this feeling in my heart that I want 10,000 kids. And it's a lot of work to have one. And did I want, given how difficult two seemed to be, did I want to go to the next, did I want to keep pursuing that? And so at the time, I was really captivated by what Angelina Jolie was doing, because she had adopted a daughter from Ethiopia. And I was like, oh, that's an option. And then I also was very closely following what Bono was doing with debt relief with European countries and African countries. As there was post-colonialism, there was so much money given to individual countries, and they were so hampered in their development by having to pay back the debt. So I was just on this enormous learning curve. And then simultaneously, I found out that every 30 seconds, a child was dying of a mosquito bite, of malaria, and that there were 12 million children who'd been orphaned by AIDS, and that 20 million people died from the AIDS epidemic. Talk about a pandemic.
Yeah.
And that this was not on the nightly news, whether Britney Spears was wearing underwear or not was on the freaking nightly news. And I was like, what world are we in? And I just really, I grew up in Spanish Harlem. My parents are both Holocaust survivors. I grew up with this belief that just because it's not happening in front of you doesn't mean that it's not happening. So when I was following the news and the information, I really needed to see it for myself. I had to bear witness, and that seemed to be the ray of hope and the next right thing for me to do on this dark night of the soul, which was very dark for a period of time. And so, it's just like anything, when you put the desire and the intention out there, and no matter what you call it, spirit, God, another intelligence, the universe picks up on that energy. And within a very short period of time, I had an invitation to go to Africa, and even and right on the tail of that was the invitation to go to Uganda. And I knew that the HIV rates there were much higher than were being reported. And I said yes. And, everybody thought I was crazy, and it all turned out better than I could have possibly imagined.
Oh, that's just incredible, because not everybody with your, I want to say power, because as white women, we do have a power, prestige, financial security, all those things. Not everybody that has that chooses to do what you did. So on my show, I like to encourage people with that power and to make a difference. So I'd like to ask you, how has that experience, first of all, you probably remember the first time you went to Uganda, because it gets ingrained in your mind, and Africa is like another world. How has being able to create the foundation and give back to these individuals changed your life, your family's life, and your business? So your life, your family's life, and your business, how has it changed things for you?
Well, just like my child, I came back from that first trip where I will take a brief departure and say the very first night I was in Uganda, I stayed at a small clinic, and the whole night that I was there, I listened to the screams of a woman screams. I had no idea what was going on. It's my first night in Uganda. And in the morning, the sisters, the nuns who run this little clinic, brought me this little baby, and they had named her baby Christina. And it turned out that the cries that I'd been hearing throughout the night were of baby Christina's grandmother watching her daughter, a 13-year-old girl, die in childbirth.
Oh, oh, oh.
And so in that moment, you ask how my life was changed. I mean, it just exploded. And as 16 years later, when I look back, it was the microcosm of the macrocosm, right? So in that moment, I didn't realize that what I was seeing is what gets played out over and over and over again in terms of the issues that happen for women and girls to, especially girls who are forced into child marriage, early pregnancy, rape, disease. And so the incredible solution that a girl can be and is, as we see all over the world, is stunted, and she becomes the problem because she's the baby maker. So if a girl doesn't have control over her uterus, all hell breaks loose, as we can, and everything else falls from there. So it completely changed my life. And I came back, and one thing led to the other, and it's a very long story, but I started Just Like My Child Foundation, which was really inspired by the love for my own son. I couldn't understand why he, because where he was born gave him so much opportunity, and all children are just like my child. So how do I bridge that gap in my mind and in global consciousness? And so of course it changed my life. It changed my son's life. He's been to Uganda with me 5 or 6 times. He created a documentary about his experience there, about why are children in Uganda happier than kids in the US. Yeah, which is great. And, Just Like My Child really became my business. And so, sometimes I don't know how to answer that question because it's so clear to me I couldn't have been doing anything but this.
Right.
This was the evolution of the next right thing. I have a philosophy, as women, we get sort of tied up in, oh, what should I do? And, what's the right thing? And I want to go there. How do I get there the right way? Whatever your 5-year vision is. And I'm like, man, just do the next right thing, and the next right thing. And as long as you have a community that you've invested in that will support you, you will get to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. And it's just, it's exactly that. It's doing the next right thing because like the universe has a bigger plan for us than even we can see. And if we just listen to those heart pulls, one step at a time, you're going to be doing what you're designed to do. And if you ignore them, it'll probably just take you longer to get there. I'm wondering if I can ask you, because you've worked in the corporate world and in business, and you are still working in business and marketing and strategy. One of the biggest messages that I am working to get out into the world is that corporations need to partner with organizations like yours, like Just Like My Child and Girl Power Project, because, and that's the question I want you to answer, why is it so important for corporations around the world to start giving back? What would be the benefits if CEOs were able to partner with a project that they were passionate about? How do you think that would benefit the culture of corporate world?
Oh, that's so funny. Because I'm not you didn't tell me to do this, but one of the books that I don't really talk about that I wrote, it's called How to Change the World While You Work.
Yes.
For using philanthropy to build your business.
That's
Great question, Rebecca.
That's awesome. Can you please talk about that book? Because I am
actually, if it's okay, I can just give you the URL where you can go and download it. It's justlikeMyChild.org/book.
That's awesome.
pretty easy. You can go on there and just download it. You know, and this book is really focused on the smaller entrepreneur. And I don't mean small like, you know, tiny, but sort of the homegrown entrepreneur who's built a significant business. They know that there's something more there, and that they want to contribute, but they don't want to go out and start their own foundation. Mm-hmm. And how can they really make a difference? I think, first of all, from a selfish point of view, and I think, you know, we're all motivated by selfish intentions, whether they're philanthropic or, you know, you want to rob the bank. You know, it's whatever fulfills us is what motivates us, and therefore is selfish. But, you know, one of the things is that I've seen over and over, because I've spoken on a lot of stages with entrepreneurs who brought me in for exactly this purpose. We've been able to raise so much money to transform the world, one girl at a time, is that I've seen that by asking their communities to be part of something bigger, by asking their communities to give, it builds their credibility, it builds the company's trust, and it actually increases, I've documented this, their sales by 50%. So when
50%.
50%, I've got a document.
I want to say, CEOs, are you listening? 50% increase in sales when you give back. Yeah. Love it. Keep going.
Yeah. Because people, you know, and I will say, especially women run businesses that cater to women, you know, it's just the piece that's missing, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm building my business. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm raising kids. I got my, you know, 100 balls up in the air, but what am I doing to really make a difference? What is my legacy? So for CEOs, it's a legacy making thing. I can't say anything, you know, less than that. It's a profit motivation, it's a legacy making, it builds your brand, it builds the credibility and the loyalty. Because if you have the option to buy from you know, Sarah Blakely and Spanx, because, you know, she's turning around and doing so much for women, versus Hanes, where you might not know the difference, you know, you're just buying for a big corporation. What are you going to do? You know, you're going to buy from that sort of category of one that's got all of these components that make you a loyal customer. And who doesn't love Spanx anyway? Yeah. So, I can't believe I'm not wearing a Spanx item.
I'm not wearing a Spanx either.
Unbelievable. It's an off day. So the, you know, so there is that for sure. And I think that there is such I mean, it's what the world needs, because as we can see, governments can't quite get it together. The politics divides, you know, so much of the good that could possibly be going on. The national discourse is like pulled to something that really doesn't have anything to do with what's happening for most people in the world. Yeah. So it's up to us, you know, it's up to the people who can pull the big levers, and you see them doing it, you know, from Bezos to Elon, you know, Gates, across the board, really making a commitment. And I think, you know, entrepreneurialism can really heal the world. So yeah, it's a whole hand in hand.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Thank you so much for that, because I think it's such an important message. And more than anything, and Vivian, the people you're working with, I'm sure you see this, the more I'm working with people, especially the millennials, are actually not looking for a pay upgrade. They're actually looking for more meaning and more purpose in their lives. And if we could give them that through their work, if it is in corporate or if it is as they are an entrepreneur and they have their own business, if we could give them those options, how much richer, you know, the world would be, and how much better we'd be able to work together, you know? So I'm curious what you would say to this. And this question is just off the top of my head, but if you were to talk with a startup company, say a tech startup company, who were trying to create a healthy, I'm the chief fun officer, so I'm a healthy, fun, enjoyable place to work, and they didn't know where to partner, how to do that, what would be the, maybe the first steps that CEO could take? Or if you're not the CEO and you're working for the company, what could you do in that position? What would you suggest?
Well, download my book because it tells you all the things to do. I'm not getting anything out of it except changing the world.
Change the world.
Because I do have a step-by-step guide in there
Okay.
on how to choose a philanthropy, how to make a difference. I think a lot of that sort of discernment comes from asking the right questions. Yeah. So, a lot of people are driven by the, sort of the heart and the visuals of different organizations, but I think people ask the wrong questions a lot of the time. Number one wrong question is people say, what percentage of my dollar is going to programs? And boy, I've got a great response for this. It could go on for quite a long time. I would ask, would you ask that question if you were making an investment in a corporation? You would say, I'm going to make an investment. I'm going to buy into it. I want to know what the return on my investment is.
The ROI, yeah.
What the ROI is, because what we do with our Girl Power project is we do not provide a meal. We do not provide clothes on their back. We do not provide shoes. We put the power in the girl to be able to do this themselves. I would ask what kind of scientific documentation there is on the impact of the programming. What is their reach? What is the depth of it? And what are the results that they can show that lead, and if you're investing in people, as opposed to, animals or, ultimately, science is people, but, what can you show in terms of the transformation of the opportunities and the possibilities for the individual, right? So you want to go much farther, as you were talking about FGM, you want to go much farther than sort of attacking the problem. You want to transform the community to be able to go forward themselves, because, you try to tackle FGM, it's like, whack-a-mole. Yeah. If you don't change the belief system, if you don't change the attitudes and transform the way that a girl is perceived and what the fake news is about FGM and why it's perpetuated, you'll never change it. So I would just sort of look at what is the impact, where is my dollar going? And then, for companies, I would really look at how does it marry with your mission? Yes. Right. So if you're a tech company, perhaps you do want to invest in, bringing technology to education in places where it's not accessible, but to really look at what the impact is for it, so that there's, an alignment. And to go back to the Sarah Blakely example, she's empowering entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and she's, going deeper and deeper. Yeah. No, I love that, especially when it comes to third world and Africa. I always also tell people that you can't, again, with the FGM, you don't just stop FGM, you educate the women who have been trained to do the cutting of these girls. You start training them and also talking to the governments about changing the practices and why. And it's starting to, like you said, that the root cause. What is it, the root, and where did the practice start, and getting into the depths of the culture. But it's not even about us going over there and just changing things. It's about empowering them to want the change, and I think there's to see the benefit to them. Yeah, exactly. So
it's such a different mindset though. Like years ago, I think white people kind of went over to Africa and were like, we're going to make you better, do this and be more like us, rather than a different approach is really accepting their culture, and then education, just really education, you know, around all these things. So
right. And to realize that we all want the same thing. You know, it's the common ground, it's the solidarity, it's recognizing there's no better than, it's different, and what is the common ground, you know. And I think, yeah, I have a lot to talk about with FGM.
Yeah. Yeah, I am right there with you. We'll do like one on just FGM sometime to raise awareness. But are you able to expand just a little bit more on Just Like My Child and the Girl Power Project and what they're specifically doing?
Sure. So I mentioned the experience with the adolescent girl who died in childbirth the first night that I was in Uganda. And, you know, at the time we were looking at maternal mortality, and you know, one thing led to the other. We got going very quickly. We were able to build a donor base in the US. It was, you know, an unbelievable trajectory for us, because we worked in partnership with communities in Uganda. But we started building schools. We started doing micro enterprise. We partnered with Heifer International. We brought doctors into the hospital. I mean, on and on and on and
Wow.
on and on.
Wow.
And what we saw, I mean, not to be dismissive of it, was tremendous work. But what we saw over and over again was it didn't matter what you did. It didn't matter the infrastructure that you brought in. It didn't matter how many cases of malaria you stopped. If you didn't intervene in the life of an adolescent girl to keep her in school, to keep her safe from rape, avoiding forced child marriage, early pregnancy, rape, HIV, etc. If you didn't do that, you would just see the same problems over and over and over again, because the culture is really to teach subordination and just acceptance of abuse to across the board, as you know, having been in Uganda yourself.
Yeah.
So I would, so what we saw was, oh my gosh, so many tragic circumstances of girls being abused. And we started to think about, well, what would happen if you taught people what their legal rights are, you know, to the point of FGM. People don't know what their rights are. What if you started teaching people that these things are wrong? You know, child marriage is actually illegal. What if you started to put the power in the girl and create a protocol and a regimen and a curriculum and worked with communities to help build that, so that parents and teachers and attorneys and police people and medical workers were all in on, oh, that's right, that's not right, that's illegal. And girls started to take on the knowledge and power themselves. And so we created something called Girl Power Project, which is a replicable curriculum of girls' empowerment that we have now just this year published the scientific data proving the efficacy and the impact of the program on in 2 phases of monitoring and evaluation. One was measuring the change in the attitudes and behaviors of the girls, and the other was in monitoring the change in the communities themselves, the impact on all of those stakeholders, teachers, parents, community members, et cetera. And Texas A&M University came out to the ground. They conducted over 700 interviews. They compiled the data. We had the girls' data. And we were just academically published we were published in an academic journal just a couple of months ago. And so now we feel as though this program can go anywhere in the world. It can be taken across the world. And so our sales model has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that our goal our goal now is to train other people in implementing the programming, so that we're not the ones who are, you know, raising all the money to go door to door with it, but that we're giving the power to the people who are doing this work all over the world. So we're actually going to start in India.
Okay.
We've done some work with Great Sioux Nation in South Dakota, and hope to do more there as well. So it's exciting.
Well, when are we going to Uganda, Vivian?
I don't know. When do you go to Uganda? I'm just talking to some people who just came back from there, which I'm like, I don't know how they did it. I just don't
How
even
did
know
they
how.
get? So, are you planning to go?
I am not. We're just monitoring what is happening there. We've taken a donor group every year. I've gone a minimum of 2 times a year every year since 2006. Yeah, I think whatever ends up happening with COVID right now, I'm itchy. I'm really
I know. I
itchy.
am too. I'm too, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know I'm itching to go back there as well. So I totally understand that. Well, I want to ask you one final question. If you could do anything in the whole world, and money and time and age and nothing mattered, nothing could stop you, what would you do?
Wow. Um, well, I think I mean, so many things, but if there were,
Go for it.
yeah, the thing, this, first of all, I mean, I would travel. I know it's very, very difficult for people, but I am such a wanderlust, very difficult to stay still. One of the things that I would probably do is I would live in Greece for a couple of months, and just, be by the seaside and, with my husband and fish. And I would live a simpler life. I really
Wow.
think that's a big part of it, is I would live a simpler life. I really, with just everything that's going on, I long for less technology. I long for simplicity. And yeah, that would be really cool to be able to put my phone down for a couple of months. And then I think, one of the big sort of visions and passions that I have right now is I'm writing my memoir, which the working title is Undeterred: how finding my voice has helped, tens of thousands of girls find theirs. And to really create something that is like Eat, Pray, Love meets social activism, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
millions of women are like, see themselves in this and see that they have the license and the freedom to create something bigger and joyful in their lives. And then I would sell the screenplay and Reese Witherspoon would play me. And you asked, but that's what I would love. So.
Yes, there it is. There it is. Okay, Reese Witherspoon, when you see this,
And Reese and Reese.
why not? Hey, and I am a believer that anything is possible, that there's no ceiling, and limitless opportunities are around us. We just have to be available and receive from the universe.
Yeah, you're 100%, in line with what the universe wants from us. And so I think, that kind of is my motto. Everyone thought I was crazy, and it all turned out better than I could have possibly imagined. And as soon as you think you're crazy, you're on to the next right thing.
Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I just left Canada to go to Ecuador, and I'm getting the backlash. It's like, wow, do you think you can go to Ecuador? Well, that's it. Maybe I'm crazy, but maybe, you know what? I wanted what Vivian wants. I wanted to get away from technology for a little while. I wanted to go and swim in the ocean. I wanted to go running in warm weather, like if you follow that
Oh,
path.
that's what I wanted to do already. So there you go.
Yeah, some parts of it. I'm not writing a memoir, but wow. Well, Vivian, it's been so great to meet you. I'm so thrilled that you were able to be on the show. I just want to say, if you want to get a hold of Vivian, or you are interested in learning a little bit more about Just Like My Child and Girl Power Project, just check out the links below. We're going to put them down there. You can Google that as well. And just thank you so much, Vivian, for all your expertise and for doing what you're doing in the world by sharing your heart with so many and changing so many lives. I love what you said, that because you found your voice, you were able to help so many others find their voice, and how true it is that more of us need to find our voice and our place in this world, and then we'll start to have a much larger impact. So thank you so much. My name is Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks for making this fun.
Yes, this has been fun. I'm Rebecca Binnendyke. I'm your Chief Fun Officer. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.